Now that we have this idea that science is a consensus and they have all these appeals to authority, once a Supreme Court judge says something, that becomes a validation of it, not whether or not it's factual. It matters who says it, not whether it is right. So when you go and you look at things like on social media, they have all these community standard guidelines. And so if you go and say this is, different to what they said, they'll come back and say fact check wrong because the Supreme Court said this. That's a big problem because our scientific knowledge is now being dictated to by authority figures rather than the truth. And if you try and dispute it, like you, for example, Ian, you get deleted. Is this a bigger problem than even the Supreme Courts?
Well, I think it's a major problem. We've known for 2,500 years from the Greek philosophers about the fundamentals of science, and things like consensus are not science. They are politics. They are religion. But we don't have a consensus in science. We have lone wolves out there providing evidence which completely destroys theories which we might have accepted for a long period of time. Just because everyone says something is true doesn't mean it's true. So we've known that the paths of logic that are used by the courts are demonstrably wrong, and that could have been shown 2,500 years ago. Now that then becomes the gold standard. There is no consensus in science. There is a great diversity of information. We are constantly making new discoveries and having to adjust those discoveries. And fairly recently, it was discovered that there is a signal in sediments of Mars. And this Martian signal is every 2.4 million years. That is a climate signal. And we've only just discovered that Mars has an influence on climate. Now, I find that exciting. You cannot lock science into the past. You cannot lock it into a consensus. It's constantly changing on the basis of new evidence. And so we've got new evidence that Martian forces are important in climate change, so we have to modify our theories. So once we have something that's written down by a court, I don't think we can accept it. I think it's a treasured institution which has been contaminated by environmental activism, and I join many people in society that have little trust in our major institutions simply because they don't do their work properly.